Hey friends, tonight I'll be telling you a true crime story in a soft, gentle way. You're probably parked in your cozy bed right now, lights dimmed low, the blanket tucked just right. But imagine this: you're stepping into a grocery store parking lot just as the sun is beginning to set. The asphalt is still warm from the day, and the hum of shopping carts rolls lazily through the humid evening air. And somewhere, just like that, someone disappears. Without a sound, without a trace. So before you settle in too deep, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're watching from. What time is it where you are? Drop your city and your local hour in the comments below. Now, turn off the lights, switch on your fan for a little soothing background hum, and let's begin tonight's journey together. It's a breezy Friday night in early June, and you're outside the Monarch Market, one of those aging strip mall grocery stores with flickering signage and a soda machine that hasn't worked since 2014. There's a hint of barbecue in the air, probably someone grilling 3 blocks over. You notice the time, 9:13 p.m., still light out, but barely. And there, near the farthest row of cars, is a silver Honda Civic, lights on, engine running, driver's door open. No one inside. You pause. It's not your business, right? Except there's something eerie about how still it is. The cart boy, pushing a long train of rattling trolleys, slows as he passes the vehicle. He peeks inside. Nothing. No wallet, no phone, no bag. Just an untouched water bottle in the cup holder. He keeps walking. He has no idea he'll be interviewed by police in less than 12 hours. That car belonged to a 28-year-old woman named Haley Reed. Brown hair, athletic build, yoga teacher, mildly obsessed with Sudoku and iced chai. Earlier that evening, she had messaged her roommate, "Gonna grab some eggs and snacks. Be back in 15." Haley never came back. Her phone last pinged the tower near the Monarch Market at 9:11 p.m. Security footage, yes, the grainy kind that makes everyone look like a shadowy blob from a haunted version of The Sims, showed her entering the store at 8:58. She bought a pack of gum and a single can of cat food. No eggs, no snacks. Strange, right? Not nearly as strange as what happened next. At 9:04, she exits the store. She walks straight toward her car. You see her open the door, and then, poof, gone. The next morning, the Civic is still there, windows cracked. The inside smells faintly of citrus. No keys, no Haley. Detectives comb the area. They find a single white AirPod on the ground near the car, slightly scuffed, battery dead. It would be the only physical clue they ever recover. Well, unless you count the legend of the parking lot itself. You see, that very spot, row D, fourth space from the back, has a bit of a reputation. In 1997, a man disappeared while loading groceries into his trunk in the exact same row. In 2008, a teenager was found wandering nearby, disoriented, claiming she had lost time. She couldn't remember the past 2 hours, and in 2016, a woman's dog refused to go near that row, barking and howling whenever they passed it. Folks started calling it the Vanishing Row. Sounds silly until someone like Haley vanishes into it. There's a theory among internet sleuths that the Monarch Market was built over a former military testing site. Something about signal interference, magnetic anomalies, and missing time. Others think it's simpler than that, a well-organized abduction. But here's the weirdest detail of all. The store's security system showed no other person near Haley's car. None. No shadows, no movement, just Haley. 1 second she's there, the next, she's not. Cue the X-Files theme, or maybe just another sip of chamomile. Back in 2021, a retired police detective named Gus Landers dug into the case. He noticed something overlooked. Every person who vanished from that parking lot had been wearing blue. Haley, blue yoga pants, and a navy hoodie. Coincidence? Probably. But in the land of unsolved mysteries, probably is never enough. Just like the debate about the so-called grocery lot glitch. Some believe it's a naturally occurring time rift, like an accidental Bermuda Triangle, except surrounded by discounted cereal. Others roll their eyes and say, it's just a crime scene. But what about the fact that cell signals always drop in row D, space 4? Even Verizon can't explain that one. Anyway, the Civic was eventually towed. Her family put up flyers. A podcast did a 6-part series. And yet, no leads. Only the memory of Haley walking to her car and never being seen again. So here you are, still following the faint trail of clues in the fading glow of Monarch Market's overhead lights. You picture yourself standing in that eerily quiet lot, maybe right where her tires had once left faint impressions in the dust. Maybe you even feel the echo of a presence that should still be there, but isn't. Haley's case didn't hit national news. Not really. There was a quick segment on local TV, a few missing posters taped to telephone poles, and a heartfelt interview with her parents that aired on Channel 4. But something about her story caught on in the digital underground. You know, the Reddit forums, Discord groups, niche YouTube channels with pixelated thumbnails and voiceovers set to spooky piano music. They began building maps, cross-referencing vanishing times with moon phases. One user claimed that on the night Haley disappeared, the moon was at exactly 79% waning gibbous, a lunar phase sometimes associated with chaos in folklore. You don't have to believe that stuff. But isn't it weirdly comforting that someone out there cares enough to look up moon cycles for a stranger? Let's rewind a bit. You imagine Haley back in her apartment earlier that day, the sun coming through her windows in long yellow stripes. She's feeding her orange cat, Moose. That cat would cry by the front door for days after she disappeared. She probably tied her shoes without a second thought, tossed her hair into a bun, grabbed her canvas grocery tote, the one with the faded lotus flower print. You try to imagine it, the moment she stepped out her door for what should have been a 10-minute errand. Nothing special, just another Friday. And yet, it was the last anyone ever saw of her. There's something deeply unsettling about the mundane becoming final, isn't there? Detectives followed every lead. They interviewed the cashier working that night, Amy, a college sophomore studying forensic psychology. Amy remembered Haley as really calm, kind of dreamy, said she kept checking her phone while standing in line, like she was waiting for a reply that never came. They pulled phone records. Haley had texted a number not saved in her contacts at 8:55 p.m. Here, let me know. No response. That number was later traced to a burner phone purchased 3 days earlier at a gas station 12 miles away. It had never been used again. Now that's the kind of thing that gets web sleuths frothing. Some believed she was meeting someone from a dating app, one that deletes messages after reading. Others wondered if it was an old student from her yoga class. One even suggested she'd gotten caught up in something stranger, an underground wellness cult that recruited through alternative medicine forums. The theories are endless, and honestly, some are laughable, but that's the thing about unsolved crimes. Even the ridiculous starts to feel plausible after enough nights with no answers. Let's pause for a moment and appreciate a fun little historical fact. In the 1800s, American newspapers used to print mystery disappearances in a section called The Vanished. No photos, just long descriptions like Miss Eleanor Bray, last seen with a bonnet of robin's egg blue, her parasol trailing behind her. Sound familiar? Swap parasol for canvas tote, and history starts to rhyme. The details change, the stories don't. Haley, Eleanor, both names echoing into the same strange silence. Then there's that one neighbor who swears, and I mean swears, he saw a dark green SUV idling with no lights near the edge of the parking lot around 9:10 p.m. He didn't catch a plate. Said he thought it was an Uber waiting for someone. It wasn't registered on any rideshare apps. That vehicle never appeared in the security footage. Either the angle missed it or something else did. That's when theories of a ghost car started cropping up online. Absurd? Yeah. But go ahead and Google phantom traffic. It's a real thing in physics, a kind of wave pattern that appears on highways due to invisible fluctuations. No one's claiming the SUV was a literal ghost, but still, a car that shows up to one man but not to a camera, not exactly sleep material, unless you're listening to this. Maybe Haley ran, maybe she was taken, or maybe, and this one sends a chill right down your spine, maybe she never even made it back to her car. Maybe everything you've seen is a glitch. That's the theory I find most bizarre and weirdly poetic. Some amateur researchers claim there's a 5-second jump in the security footage, just a gap, like someone cut a sliver of reality out with invisible scissors. It's probably nothing. Compression error, lens flicker. But if you're lying in bed right now thinking, wait, what if? Congratulations, you've entered the mystery. Some nights you think about that car, the Honda Civic, still warm, still humming, still waiting. And in the back seat, the tote bag, untouched, a receipt, a mint gum wrapper, a half-used bottle of lavender hand sanitizer. Everyday items that became the final chapter of someone's visible life. What happened next? You shift in bed, the fan humming gently in the corner, and you think, Maybe someone does know what happened to Haley Reed. That's where Act 2 picks up. It's 6 weeks after the disappearance. By now, the local police have hit a dead end. Tips have dried up. Haley's parents are still giving interviews, still handing out flyers. Her cat, Moose, has been adopted by her roommate's aunt, who says he still cries at the window every night. But online, things are just heating up. You're on a subreddit called Are Your Missing Mysteries, where internet sleuths are devouring every frame of the surveillance video, frame by frame breakdowns, wild theories about body doubles, infrared overlays, and one post that changes everything. A user named nightdrizzle_14, an account created the day before, uploads something odd. A still frame from the Monarch Market's East parking lot camera, one not released to the public. It shows a figure standing in the far corner of the lot, alone, no car nearby, dressed all in black, no identifiable features, just there. The timestamp is 9:12 p.m., 1 minute after Haley is last seen. That post disappears within 15 minutes, and so does the account. This kind of thing sends the online sleuths into a frenzy. They start digging, and here's where you come in. You lean forward, eyes scanning Reddit threads at 2:43 a.m., a cup of cold tea on your nightstand. You're convinced something in that frame matters. So you do what every good armchair detective does. You zoom and wait. There, to the right of the figure, just barely visible through the parking lot haze, is a symbol, spray painted on the curb in faded yellow, an eye inside a triangle. It's probably nothing, right? Except that exact symbol, same shape, same color, same direction, was spotted in 3 other unsolved missing persons cases over the past 5 years. One in Minnesota, one in Nevada, one in Georgia. Coincidence? A prank? Or something darker? Here's your odd historical fact of the night. In the 1930s, a strange group called the Ocular Society claimed to study invisible doors in modern architecture. They believed certain shapes, triangles, circles, and slanted lines, could create gaps in perception. Not literal doorways, but psychological ones. They faded into obscurity after World War II, but some of their surviving documents mention parking lots as high potential sites for atmospheric distortion. Makes you want to walk through a Target parking lot just a little faster, doesn't it? And yeah, it sounds ridiculous. But when Haley disappeared, the weather station recorded a spike in electromagnetic fluctuation at exactly 9:12 p.m. Nothing major, just enough to interrupt a few car radios in the area. Still, it's another tick on the mystery meter. Around this time, the media drops the story. Another case takes over the headlines. A missing boy in Texas, an arson investigation in Colorado. But Haley's roommate, Jess, refuses to let it go. She uploads a vlog, just her in a hoodie, hair messy, face puffy from crying. She tells a story she hadn't told anyone yet. The night before Haley vanished, someone left a note taped to their apartment door. No name, no handwriting, just 5 words, all capitalized. You won't find her here. Jess thought it was a prank. Haley had laughed it off. But now, That note eats at her. She hands it over to police. It's printed, not handwritten, on standard 8.5 by 11 paper. No fingerprints, no traceable ink. Just one chilling line. You won't find her here. Whatever here meant. Maybe it was more than physical. Maybe it meant anywhere. By month 3, the story has gone cold until something else happens. A man named Daniel Kane walks into the Franklin Police Department one humid morning and asks to speak with a detective, not a cop, not a receptionist, a detective. He won't give his last name until he's seated. He keeps adjusting his collar. He looks not unstable exactly, but unsettled, like a man who's been looking over his shoulder for far too long. Kane says he used to work mall security. He's retired now, lives in a camper in West Virginia. But he saw the still frame on Reddit, and he recognizes the figure in black. Not the face, there's no face, but the stance. The way they stand, he says, always the same, one hand in the coat, head tilted left, like they're listening. He says he saw someone standing just like that in 2019 in the parking lot of the Meadowbrook Outlet Mall, 3 weeks before a girl disappeared from there. Kane tried to tell someone back then, but no one listened. Now, he says, it's happening again. Of course, police file the tip and move on, but not you. You're lying there in bed, hearing the soft buzz of your fan and wondering, what if Kane's right? What if there's a pattern, not of crime, but of a presence? You start mapping parking lot disappearances, not just in Franklin, not just in Tennessee, but across the U.S. And the pattern isn't linear, it's circular. Always small towns, always just off the interstate, always the second Friday of the month, exactly like the night Haley vanished. Coincidence or something else entirely? And that burner phone? Turns out there was one other call placed from it, 2 days before Haley disappeared. A voicemail left on a florist's number in Iowa. No words, just 5 seconds of low static and what sounds like breathing. Experts tried to analyze it. Could have been wind, could have been interference, or someone very much alive, very much close, and very much watching. So you dive deeper. It's 1:17 a.m., and your screen is glowing with tabs, maps, archived news clippings, satellite images of dimly lit parking lots. You're not even sure what you're looking for anymore, just that it's something. You search the coordinates of Monarch Market. You drag the Google Street View figure across the screen and drop it down. The lot looks exactly like you'd expect. Patched asphalt, faded yellow lines, cracked curbs with half-hearted shrubbery. But then, you notice it. Across the street, barely visible behind a row of forgotten businesses, is an old, decommissioned power station. You zoom in. The building is surrounded by a rusted chain-link fence, overgrown grass, and a single blinking red light on a pole, possibly a relic from when the station still operated. A local blog from 2015 mentions that the building used to generate electricity for the town back in the 60s and 70s, but it's since been gutted. Empty inside, mostly. Because if you keep reading, you find something stranger. A resident filed a noise complaint in 2020, claiming she heard whirring and humming noises coming from the station late at night. The complaint was dismissed. Building no longer in use, the report read. But what if it was being used for something else? Here's a historical tidbit to tuck under your pillow tonight. In the early 1900s, Thomas Edison believed sound could be imprinted onto physical objects using energy fields, not tape, not vinyl, but actual air molecules. He once tried to build a spirit phone to capture the voices of the dead. It never worked, obviously, or at least so we assume. Still, it's a fun thing to think about when the static on your baby monitor gets just a little too clear. Meanwhile, Haley's case has reached that uncomfortable middle ground. Too old to be breaking news, too fresh to be cold case file. But that changes when a podcast called The Vanished in the Valley drops a new episode, The Parking Lot Pattern, and within hours a new tip rolls in from a man named Mike Vinton. He's 47, works maintenance at a self-storage facility about 2 miles from Monarch Market. On the night Haley disappeared, he was finishing a late shift and taking out the trash. Around 9:20 p.m., he saw a figure moving near the edge of his property, just past the fence. He assumed it was a deer, until he saw something reflecting light. It was a silver bracelet, glinting just above the grass line. The figure didn't make a sound, didn't look his way, just moved in a straight line, slowly into the trees. Mike didn't report it. He thought it was just a weird coincidence. But when he listened to the podcast and saw a photo of Haley wearing a silver bracelet at her birthday dinner 3 weeks before, he called in. Police searched the area. They found nothing. No bracelet, no clothing, no footprints, just the memory of motion, like a ripple in tall grass that refuses to settle. Back online, the theories evolve. Some believe Haley was abducted by a trafficker using a new silent method, a phrase that gets tossed around a lot with no solid definition. Others suggest she was targeted, not for who she was, but for where she was. This brings us to a strange fringe theory called location tagging. The idea? Certain spots are marked, not digitally, but physically, as points of interest for abductors, cults, or other groups. The triangle with eye symbol? Possibly a tag. A green light seen blinking above the old power station at random hours? Another tag. And remember the security footage gap? The missing 5 seconds? Some suggest that's not an error, but a deliberate block. A system override, a digital blindfold. But let's talk about something less scary for a moment. Haley loved growing lavender. She had 3 pots of it outside her window and made her own tea blends. Her last Instagram post, a photo of her balcony garden. The caption read, "Even the small things can smell like hope." It got 38 likes. You scroll through her page. There's nothing unusual, just a woman living quietly, teaching yoga, drinking smoothies, posting cat pictures. That's the hardest part about cases like these. They remind you how little separates the routine from the unthinkable. One final wrinkle. An old man named Ellis McGrady lives in a trailer near the Monarch Market, claims that he saw a man in a maintenance vest standing next to Haley's car at 9:10 p.m. This directly contradicts the police report that says no one else was seen near the vehicle. Ellis says he didn't report it because he assumed the man was fixing a light pole. But here's the thing, there are no light poles in that part of the parking lot. And now you're left with a stack of questions. If the footage missed 5 seconds, what was in them? If the symbol is a mark, who put it there? If someone was seen in a vest, who hired him? It's at this point you realize there's no single theory that explains it all. But maybe the scariest part is this. What if it's not just Haley? What if it's a pattern, repeating itself, waiting for the next person to pull into the wrong spot, at the wrong time? Let's drift a little deeper now, into the shadows, cast not just by what we know, but by what we refuse to believe. It's been 143 days since Haley vanished. The town's moved on, mostly. The posters have curled at the corners. The grocery store installed new lighting in the parking lot, bright, sterile LEDs. But no one ever parks in Road Space 4 anymore, not even the cart boys. You can't help but wonder, if someone else disappeared from that spot, would it even make the news this time? Here's where it gets weirder. A woman named Denise Tolliver lives across the highway from Monarch Market in an apartment complex called Whispering Pines. She's not what you'd call well-liked, known for hoarding lawn gnomes and yelling at squirrels. But Denise has a camcorder, one of those grainy 2009 models with a date stamp that never updates. She uses it to record suspicious activity, most of which involves teenagers vaping near the soda machine. But one of her tapes, recorded accidentally on the night of June 9th, captures something different. She left the camera running on her balcony facing the lot, and at exactly 9:12 p.m., a strange pulse of light flickers over the market's rooftop. Just for a second, like a single frame of a lightning strike with no thunder. She didn't notice until someone from the subreddit reached out and asked to see all her footage. Denise didn't even know Haley had vanished. Now she watches that flash over and over. Theories explode again. Could it have been a drone? A light malfunction? Some say it matches descriptions of something called a liminal flash, a sudden exposure of light that marks a temporal threshold. Don't ask me who came up with that. Probably someone with too many books and too little sunlight. Still, when you pause the tape at the right frame, there's something that makes your skin prickle. In the edge of the flash, near the corner of the market's roof, you see a shape. Not clear, not human, but it's there. This is when the FBI quietly steps in, not publicly, but sleuths notice changes, Reddit threads deleted, security footage pulled, podcasts taken offline. A local reporter named Shannon Lee tries to file a FOIA request. It gets denied. The reason? Ongoing investigation involving interstate jurisdiction, which is code for we know more than we're saying. So you dig deeper. You find records of 3 other women, similar age, similar routine, vanishing from parking lots between 2018 and 2022. One in Indiana, one in Utah, one in Delaware. All three were alone. All three were last seen wearing blue, and all three were captured by security footage that experienced brief technical interruptions at the exact moment they vanished. Now it's starting to feel like less of a mystery and more like a method. Let's take a breather with a strange but true sidebar. In 1965, a physicist named James Murtaugh proposed that reality might occasionally experience hiccups, tiny nanosecond long resets. His peers laughed him out of the room, but years later, some quantum theorists revisited his notes. What they found was oddly relevant. He believed that certain public spaces could act as focal points for these anomalies, especially places with high foot traffic and low surveillance clarity. He even named one type of hotspot, the lot fold. It was purely theoretical, just a phrase, but if that's not chillingly poetic, I don't know what is. Now picture this. You're back in that parking lot. The Civic is long gone. The asphalt has been repainted, but the air still feels wrong, too still, like it's remembering something. You bend down and place your hand flat against the pavement. It's warm, warmer than it should be, almost like a heartbeat. That brings us to our last strange encounter for tonight. A woman named Carol Brenner, a former night janitor for Monarch Market, says she quit 3 days after Haley vanished. Why? Because on her last shift, while mopping the storage corridor behind the freezer section, she heard something. A voice. Clear, female, and close. It said, "I'm still here." No one else was in the store. She dropped her mop and ran. Carol never told her boss, never filed a report. But she wrote it all down in a letter she never mailed. The letter was found last week, tucked inside a used copy of Wuthering Heights at a thrift store in Memphis. Because apparently, the truth doesn't just hide, it waits. Let's ease into Act 3 now, like slipping under a warm blanket after a long night. You've followed the static in the air, the empty seat in the Civic, the triangle symbols, and the gaps in footage. And maybe you've started to accept something you don't want to admit. Haley Reid may not be found, at least not in any traditional way. But her story doesn't end with absence. It expands, curling into every unanswered question, every unexplained flicker, every single breath of wind across a silent parking lot. It's now been a year since Haley vanished. The police report has been filed away. Her family holds a candlelight vigil on the anniversary. Someone speaks. Someone cries. A stranger lays a bouquet by row D. But something unexpected happens in month 13. Jess, the roommate, receives a package. No return address, no postage. It was left on her porch sometime between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Inside the box is a flash drive, and on that flash drive, a recording. Just audio, distorted, faint static at first, then slowly, footsteps, the sound of gravel crunching, then a voice, software female. It wasn't the car. It was the space beside it. And then, silence. Jess plays it for the police. They run it through audio analysis software. They find no definitive match, but one tech says off the record, it's close, real close. Could be Haley. Could, not is. Still, it's enough to pull the case back into the public's attention. The podcast picks it up again. Reddit reopens the threads, and for the first time in months, hope shimmers faintly in the dark. There's a term that crops up in one of the sleuth forums: nonlinear abductions. Basically, the theory that a person can vanish from one point in time but not be entirely gone, just shifted. Not in a science fiction teleportation way, more like misfiled, the way a book might fall behind a bookshelf and stay hidden for years until someone moves the furniture. It's not a theory that law enforcement entertains, but among the tinfoil crowd, it has legs, especially when someone uncovers this little gem. A woman in Kentucky reported seeing someone who looked exactly like Haley browsing a roadside farmer's market 2 weeks ago. When she approached her, the woman smiled and said, "I'm sorry, I'm not her." Then she walked away. No ID, no phone, nothing. But later that day, the same witness found a gum wrapper tucked under her windshield wiper, the same brand Haley bought the night she vanished. Here's a final historical detour before we descend into the quiet. In 1978, a researcher named Dr. Lenora Finch published a paper on what she called behavioral echoes. She proposed that places retain emotional imprints strong enough to replay under specific conditions, like a memory caught in magnetic tape, waiting for the right head to play it back. Most dismissed her work, but her final experiment was unusual. She spent a night in a parking lot where a young man had disappeared decades earlier. She set up tape recorders, EMF detectors, a barometer. She reported seeing the man appear at exactly 3:13 a.m., standing silently beside a trash can. When she blinked, he was gone, but her recorder caught a single word: here. Her lab was shut down 2 years later. The recording lost, or maybe just misfiled. So back to Haley, a journalist, someone from the original Channel 4 team, decides to dig back in. He starts calling everyone again. He tracks down a former Monarch Market employee, someone who worked that night. His name is Andy Maris. He was stocking shelves near the back, said he didn't think he saw anything. But then, on the phone, he hesitates, says something odd. There was a smell. Not bad, not rot, not bleach. He describes it as electrical lavender, burnt air and flowers. That same scent was reported in 2 other missing persons cases, both in grocery store parking lots. Neither was solved, so now you lie there, eyes half closed, and you wonder, is Haley gone? Or is she simply echoing, just out of frame, just out of reach, like a faint ripple you can almost feel when the fan brushes across your face? Maybe she left. Maybe she was taken. Maybe she's in some sliver of space, folded just beneath the fabric of what we think is real. And somewhere, just past midnight, someone else pulls into a parking lot, leaves their engine running, steps out for just a moment, and the wind begins to shift. You're still here, aren't you? Wrapped in the soft hush of late night, with the quiet buzz of your fan filling the silence between thoughts. The mystery of Haley Reed continues to drift, not like a puzzle waiting to be solved, but like smoke, visible for a second, then gone. Let's follow that smoke a little further. 2 months after the flash drive, something else surfaces. A college student named Nora, working on a thesis about media coverage of missing persons, requests access to unused footage from Monarch Market's security system. She's granted limited access to 36 hours surrounding the disappearance window. But while scrolling through slow, uneventful clips of mop buckets, flickering lights, and late night shoppers, she sees something strange. At 2:31 a.m. on the night Haley vanished, 5.5 hours later, a man appears at the edge of the lot. He's tall, wearing a gray hoodie and dark jeans. His face is shadowed, his hands in his pockets. He doesn't move. For 11 minutes, he just stands there, staring at the exact spot where Haley's car had been parked. And then, without warning, he turns his head directly toward the camera, just once, and walks away. The camera catches only one clear detail, a patch on the back of his hoodie. It's hard to read, but with some sharpening and contrast tweaking, it looks like, "Speak not, return never." Not a brand, not a quote, nothing. No online match, no database hit, no symbolism in cult archives or esoteric forums, just another ghost in the machine. But he knew where to look. He knew what had happened, or maybe what was about to happen again. Now remember the AirPod found near Haley's Civic? It had gone unnoticed for months, stored in evidence, battery drained. But after a recent update to the decryption software used by forensics, they're able to extract audio fragments from its memory cache. Nothing intentional, just ambient noise. 3 clips. Clip 1, muffled conversation. A woman's voice, possibly Haley's, says not here, okay? Clip 2, footsteps on gravel, steady but quick. Clip 3, silence. Then a sound like wind rushing through metal. Not a tunnel, not a pipe, more like air being pulled through a narrow gate. And then a low frequency hum. The same hum reported by Denise Tolliver. The same hum recorded by that power station's outer mic in 1998, back when the building was still active. You know the one next to Monarch Market. Let's visit one final theory. It's called the grid burn hypothesis, originally floated by a fringe geographer named Mikhail Anders in the 1980s. He believed certain urban layouts, especially those built quickly, with poor planning, created energy pressure points. According to Anders, parking lots were particularly prone to this because of their repetitive design, electromagnetic exposure from vehicles, and proximity to high-stress decision-making. Like which cereal is the right cereal. He published a single paper on the topic before vanishing, literally. His cabin in Alaska was found empty in 1991, fire still going in the stove. But even without Anders, the theory lives on. And if it's true, if these spots do exist, pockets of misalignment where reality folds inward, then maybe Haley wasn't taken at all. Maybe she stepped into something, a ripple, a fold, a pocket between seconds. And in that pocket, maybe she's still walking, still searching for the way out. A woman named Lila posts in a grief support forum. She'd never met Haley, but last week she had a dream about her. They were sitting on a bench in a dark parking lot. No cars, no lights, just asphalt and silence. Haley leaned in and whispered, "It's not what you think, but I'm not scared. That's all." When Lila woke up, she had a single phrase stuck in her head, one she couldn't explain. "Speak not. Return never." She'd never heard it before until she saw it on Reddit 2 days later. You're lying there now, maybe with your eyes closed, listening, feeling. You think of all the nights you've parked your car, stepped into the quiet, trusted the ordinary. But the ordinary isn't safe. It's just the part of the world we stopped questioning. And Haley's story? It's not about fear. It's about curiosity, about how far a thread can unravel before we stop pulling, and whether somewhere along that unraveling we find something deeper than truth, maybe something waiting. There's a final clip, undated, unlabeled, found buried in an old phone at a thrift store. Just 15 seconds. A woman's voice, low and clear. "If you see the triangle, don't park there." And then laughter, software gentle, like someone who already knows you will. Let's leave the mystery behind now, not to forget it, but to let it rest, just like you should too. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let the air from the fan brush your cheek. Let your body settle a little deeper into the mattress. The blankets around you are soft, warm, and familiar. There's no flickering light overhead, no security footage looping, just the gentle quiet of now. Take a slow, deep breath. Hold it for a moment and let it go, like the dust lifting from a deserted parking lot at midnight, gone before you even realize it moved. Another breath in and out. Every time you exhale, imagine the edges of your mind softening. The tension between your eyes melts. The thoughts you've been carrying all day are no longer needed here. They'll wait for you in the morning, but for now, you don't need them. Right now, all that matters is the rhythm of your breath and the calm of this space. Imagine a still night sky above you, stars scattered like freckles in the dark. Somewhere, far away, questions remain unanswered. But here, in this bed, none of that matters. Let the silence cradle you. Let the unknown drift away. Let the story blur at the edges until all that's left is peace. Maybe someday we'll know the truth, but for now, sleep well.